Welcome back to another episode of FreethePlant, FreethePeople, presented by BluRok Farms. I'm your host, LeVar. And this podcast is about everything cannabis related, from industry insight in cultivation, manufacturing, retail, to consumption, to product review, and more. So definitely keep on checking in with us and keep on watching FreethePlant, FreethePeople. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about the New Mexico Cannabis Cup. So a lot of you might have heard Cannabis Cup prior and in other states, but this is going to be the first year for the New Mexico Cannabis Cup. So before I get into the specifics of what's going on here in New Mexico with the High Times, the New Mexico Cannabis Cup, let's give a little bit of more insight into the Cannabis Cup itself. So High Times founder Steve Hager is the one that decided to come up with this idea of having a Cannabis Cup, and it started in Amsterdam. I believe it was 1988 when they had their first Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam. The first Cannabis Cup that took place here in the United States was in 2010, and that was held in Southern California and Northern California. I want to just give a little bit of insight because I was born in Albuquerque, but I lived in the Bay Area for a long time. So the Cannabis Cup isn't new to me. It's something that I have been to before in the Bay Area when they had theirs a couple of years ago. Well, it's a long time now, I guess, but about 5 or 6 years ago when they had it in California as well. So I do have some insight on how it's run there. Now, the process between New Mexico and the one that I went to is different, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's get into the idea of what the Cannabis Cup, the spirit of the Cannabis Cup is supposed to be. It's really a celebration of cannabis, a celebration of the different strains, the qualities of different growers, the processing of different manufacturers, and really to highlight those that are really doing spectacular work in this space. As well as highlighting companies to give them more. Now it has evolved into highlighting companies to give specific companies that are in legal markets the opportunity to showcase their high-end products. And for consumers, it's a way to get a large sampling, depending on certain states and their rules, of what is out there in the market, and for other market competitors to get an idea of what your competitors are doing. So that brings me to the New Mexico Cannabis Cup. And then I'll go into the differences of what I've noticed here versus the one in California. The New Mexico Cannabis Cup, I believe, was launched on June 20th or through the 28th, somewhere around that week, is when I remember hearing the announcements that High Times was going to be presenting a Cannabis Cup here in New Mexico. And that as an average consumer, we can be the judges for this. And so the way that they were presenting it is, I think it was 5 different categories: indica flower, sativa flower, hybrid flower, concentrates, and edibles. And each of those, so you had 5 different kits to pick from, and each of them had different prices and had different things that were in it. I got the indica flower kit, even though I am a sativa fan, and I lean to sativa mostly, but I felt like I have a good idea of what's happening in the sativa market in the New Mexico market as just doing my own market research. So I felt it would be more advantageous for me to get the indica flower kit to get a better idea of what's happening in the New Mexico cannabis market on that side of the flower market. So that was the impetus for me going and getting or being a judge in this cup. Otherwise, if I was a normal consumer, to me, honestly, I wouldn't have paid for the kit because when you really break it down, so the indica flower kit came with 28 grams of different samples of different dispensaries in New Mexico and a variety of locations to give a real better sample size of what's really going on. So with that, you got, and it wasn't 28 different companies but it was 28 different strands. Some companies had 3 strands, some companies had 2, some companies only had 1. So my bag ended up having about, I say, 10 to 12 different companies with 28 different strains. So I had a nice mixture of what is out there out of these particular dispensaries that decided to opt into this Cannabis Cup. With that, like I said, if I was an average consumer, I wouldn't have went down that route because I think my kit was $280, which breaks down to about no, it was like I think it was like 265. It came out to almost like 280 with tax. Uh, so that breaks down to about $10 a gram, which is about the standard for the New Mexico market. So you're not really losing out on that part, which I think the High Times Cannabis Cup organization as a whole did really well because you don't want to overprice it so that you decrease the chances of consumers buying it, but you don't want to undervalue it, which would give you an indication that the dispensaries are going to probably give you less quality product. Um, but anyways, so that wasn't the issue of why I wouldn't do it as a consumer, a normal consumer. Um, but it's the fact that you're getting a random sampling of what's out there. And by my knowledge of what is happening in the market, I know there's a vast range of quality from really bad to what I consider decent. I haven't found what I consider top shelf being from the Bay Area, just to be 100% honest with you. Outside of my own products, of course. But so that's why, for me as a consumer, I wouldn't have did it. I would have just went to a dispensary, got an ounce of strains that I know I really like, and to me that would have been a better value for my money than knowing that there's going to be some in this 28 grams. Some of those samples are not going to be quality that I would prefer. So that would be a waste. So that was that's my thinking behind it. So if I was a normal consumer, no, I wouldn't have been a judge. I don't care. But being in the industry and trying to really understand my market and get a better sample of it with one fell swoop instead of traveling to, like I said, 12 different dispensaries to get this sampling, I just went to one and got a bag full of it. You know what I'm saying? So that was what made the value worth it for me. Is it was market research, getting a better understanding of the market, and it made me feel good as a grower knowing that getting that sample, I feel like my product is above all of those, and I had the opportunity to actually test it and prove it to myself. So if I was in the industry, I definitely would have been a judge, and that's why I chose to do it. Now, the way that it works is, like I said, you pick your judging kits, or you pay for your judging kits at selected dispensaries. I think there was 20 on the list. Enchanted Botanicals, Urban Wellness, Prohibit 37 or 31, I think it's called. Pure Life, I believe, was on there. But it was like 20 different dispensaries. Some of them were repeating, like several different Urban Wellnesses, several different Pure Lives were on that list where you can pick up these judging kits. So you pick up your kit. Well, you pay for your kit. You pick up your kit. You go home. They give you a code. You put that code into the High Times Cannabis Cup website, and it generates a questionnaire for you to answer about these strains, and they have them all listed there for you. You're supposed to write a 2 to 3 sentence kind of information about your opinion about that particular strand, that cultivar, from that dispensary, and then give it a rating, and then you move on and so forth until you get through all 28 samples. And the deadline to have your judging in is August 20th. And then I believe towards the end of August, they're going to be having the New Mexico Cannabis Cup actual event where Method Man and Redman are going to be performing, and that's when the winners and the runner-ups, I assume, will be announced at this cup. So that's kind of a quick rundown of how the New Mexico Cannabis Cup market, our Cannabis Cup, is performing and functioning, and it's going on right now. So I still haven't submitted my results yet. I still have 2 samples that I still have to try. I saved the best for last. I took my sample kit out. I laid them all out. I went through all of them, looking at them, smelling them, feeling them, and then jotting down notes on each one about what I saw, what I smelled, what I felt. And then as the time went on, I started sampling them, smoking them. I smoked all of them in joint paper to give it an even run, so they all were in the same. And I used the same paper. I used raw hemp, raw rolling paper, excuse me. And so that's what I used for the entire all 20, well now 27, because I still have that one, like I said, so that each one I felt was giving it. I was taking out the variables in this quote unquote kind of experiment. The other thing that I also used hemp hemp twine to light it, so I wasn't contaminating it with butane from lighters, to again give it the best chance to have the highest flavor profile and taste. I make sure I grinded it nicely, not too fine. Again, to all of the samples, and I did a pre-smell test before when the nug was as whole, and then I did another smell test, and I jotted all this down after it was grinded, because you're gonna get a burst of terpenes once it's grinded. In the Bay Area, we call it busting open the nugs, because it's gonna produce a smell. So you might see. Bay Area people know you take a sample, you break it open, smell that, and that's how you're going to really determine the quality to a certain extent without having testing. Again, all these were from dispensaries, so they all had to get third-party lab tested. So to a certain extent, you know that it's clean to a certain degree, at least to the state standards. The other thing, yeah, so that's how I kind of did it. And based on that initial smell test and that look test, I kind of ranked them in from worst to best, and I went through them that way. And my kind of initial thinking about it actually so far has gone through. The later ones have been better. Again, none of them have been up to the quality that I would consider top shelf. There's still one left, so there might be one there. So we kind of got to wait and see about that. So that's how I tested it, and so I'm going to submit my results in probably by the end of this weekend to have it submitted before the judging is up. Now, this is different than how I experienced the California Cannabis Cup. It wasn't just random people in the marketplace or consumers. It was specific judges that were picked that are known as weed connoisseurs or cannabis connoisseurs, and they were kind of used. And it was industry people that people that have been in the space or the industry long enough know that these people have been independent in their smoking abilities and their opinions about buds. Usually it's from magazines and different things like that that are independent from dispensaries to give a more honest and third-party opinion. So that's different, which in some cases it might be better, in some cases it might be not. I don't think it's better in this regard. It'd be better in a more mature market because New Mexico, I feel, is a little bit behind in regards to what its understanding of quality. Consistent theme that I noticed through all of it and through every bud that I've gotten in New Mexico outside of my own is that they are dry. They don't have any rebound. And what I mean by rebound is when you push on a nug, the nugs that I've experienced out here is if you push on a nug and you try to push all the way through, it just breaks. A properly cured nug that has been properly dried and cured and harvested, dried and cured will have some rebound to it. You can push down on it and you let it go, and it's gonna push and it's gonna kind of bounce back, similar to like a pillow. It might not go all the way to its original form, but it's gonna get very close. That means it has enough moisture in it to give you a proper balance with your smoke. Those that have that proper rebound, that have been properly dried and properly cured, when you smoke it, especially in papers, you can light it once and it will steadily go through. That's one good sign. Another good sign is that you don't see any sparks. The sparks indicates that there's usually magnesium still left in it because it hasn't been properly flushed and cured. So magnesium and zinc as well gives you those sparks. So that's the indication that it hasn't been properly flushed. So that's your signs to know. If it burns fully without having to relight, if you're properly hitting it in enough times in succession, it should stay lit. That's an indication of proper moisture level, the rebound that I was talking about. And that allows for usually a slower, smoother burn as well. If it's flushed properly, that's going to give you a nice smooth burn. And so the other reason why I smoked it in papers versus like a blunt or a hemp wrap was so that I could see about the ash, if it was white, gray, or black, to give me an indication of how well it was flushed. And then smoothness of smoke. How did the smoke, was it harsh to my taste? When I exhaled, did I have any flavor? Because the things that I get when I smoke my own products, I get flavor when I smoke out. I get smooth pull draws. I don't have to relight. I get a multitude of taste. I get sometimes, usually I'll get a initial hit, like with I think I mentioned this before with my wedding cake that I've grown. I get a very sweet, sugar cookie kind of taste on the initial hit, and then on the exhale, as a secondary or after hit or aftertaste, I get a lavender appeal. Uh, and again, my ashes are white because I flush it thoroughly to make sure that I get the proper fade on my flowers. I don't get that pop. So those are the things again you want to think about. I think when judging, and I don't think that the majority of the market out here, because we're so early in our cannabis legalization stage, that the consumers are educated enough in that aspect to really understand those nuances when judging. So I think a lot of it's going to be based on what dispensaries were their favorite, and what gave them the maybe the best effect. Like if it's an indica, made them feel the most high. And to me, it's more of an experience for me. Yes, I want a good high. I want a good effect. I want a good taste. I want to enjoy the smoke going down. I want it to last long. I want it to give me, if it's my sativas, I have certain sativas that I know that I use for certain things, that I use for when I want to be very creative and I'm doing arts, creative things, or when I want to be more productive and focused, versus my indicas, which I use at night when I'm maybe watching a movie and I want to relax. So for me, it's a whole different, I smoke with intention. So that's kind of how I go through my process, and everybody's process is different, and that's fine. But that's how I use for my judging. And I think when you look at more mature markets, the judges tend to think more on that level of the things that I just mentioned. But let me know what you thought of the New Mexico High Times Cannabis Cup kits that you got, because I only got the one, so I only got the indica flower. Let me know what you thought about the sativa, the edibles, the concentrates, what you think about how, and tell me how you judged it. What was your criteria? What was your points, and were you consistent through the whole process, or did you have different methods of consuming to get different points? But yeah, let me know what you thought. Let me know if you attended the Cannabis Cup. Or one last thing I want to mention before, the biggest difference between the New Mexico Cannabis Cup and the California one that I went to is on-site consumption was available to the California one. It's not going to be available for this one. So I think that's going to really hurt the turnout for it, because you can't consume cannabis at a Cannabis Cup. What kind of cup is that? But that's just my opinion. Let me know again yours. Please leave a like, leave a comment, tell a friend, and tell a friend. Watch the show, smoke some herb, and watch the show at the same time. And let me know what strains you like as well. And then also tell me what dispensaries are here in New Mexico that we should visit as well. So again, thank you for watching another episode of Free the Plant, Free the People, presented by BluRok Farms. And we out.